We're starting a new series today that I'm going to call Devil's Advocate, which is just to spark debate around certain things. And today's topic is going to be Destiny 2 Renegades. Now, if you don't know what Renegades is, it is a new DLC that is going to drop in December for Destiny 2, specifically December 2nd. And there's been a lot of ire within the community in general just about what this DLC is going to contain for the most part. Now, obviously from the outside looking in, or even if you are a Destiny fan, it seems as though Bungie is simply trying to get the bag in this situation, right? And I think on Bungie's part, just to be on the other side for a minute, because I'm not quite playing Devil's Advocate yet, and what I mean by Devil's Advocate in this situation is I'm just going to talk about why or how this could be a good thing, right? And for now, it does seem a little sketch. I don't blame you for being skeptical. The practices that Bungie has participated in, particularly in trying to make the most money as possible, can sometimes be very, very distasteful. And sometimes it's done in very bad ways. We can look at the Hollow Trail thing as a good example of that. There are plenty of others, but I'm not here to beat a dead horse. But my point is, you probably have a bad opinion of Bungie in some way, shape, or form, or at least you are predispositioned to a place where you see what Bungie released in the Edge of Fate reveal, which is just little teasers, showing dimly lit corridor, which is very Star Wars-y, showing a Tatooine-looking city, as well as a lightsaber and a blaster, and you think, oh wow, they really just want to sell you Star Wars within Destiny. And of course, the armor sets for the certain classes, you have Darth Vader for Titan, General Grievous for Hunter, and Kylo Ren for Warlocks. It's really only going to be the die-hard Star Wars fans, at least I think, that end up spending the money, the extra money, to buy the Ultimate Edition and to thus get all of these skins unlocked, or armor sets. They're not really skins, but you get the point. And I think that's what's really astonished me a little bit, is there's an option here. If you're not a Star Wars fan, or if you're very skeptical about Renegades, you don't have to pre-order it. You don't even have to buy it until the reveal in September, which, yes, there will be a reveal, and Bungie could have waited until then to finally reveal Renegades to us and, maybe give a hint here or there, but they decided not to do that. Why? Because, well, it makes sense, right? The expansion's coming out in December, which is only 6 months from now, so you give yourself plenty of time to build up the hype for this, plus a project as big as this, and by big I mean you have the Star Wars fandom and the Destiny fandom in one. You want to get as much exposure for it as you can. I mean, it just makes sense from a marketing perspective, right? If they announced it last minute, people wouldn't have the level of anticipation for it that obviously people have for it now. And it does go both ways. There are people who are probably super excited for it, and there are people who are dreading it and running from it. And there are two sides to this, and that's the whole point of this video. Chances are, whatever side you're on, I'm not going to change your mind. I'm not here to change your mind. I'm just here to open up the debate, right? Because a big holdup I've seen from people is breaking the immersion of Destiny 2. And I can tell you, if you have a problem with that, you are probably playing the wrong game, for one, and for two, you don't have to break your own immersion. You can stick to the Destiny aesthetic, you can just ignore this DLC if you want, and keep your immersion. I mean, I can give examples already of in-game stuff, collabs, and crossovers that, light crossovers, paying homage to certain things. And of course, a lot of people are going to bring up the 30th anniversary pack, and I've already said it's a similar thing, it's not the same, because Halo is a previous Bungie IP. It's not like they're doing a collab with Marvel, right? They're just paying respect to their past, right? They had a marathon weapon or a myth weapon, I think, as well. Whatever. Cool stuff. This doesn't break the immersion too much because, it's a Bungie game, right? And let's be honest, the BXR guns are pretty good. Forerunner is also really good. Half Truths and the other sword, I forget the name. Really, they're just good for movement. They're not meta defining, really, and that's another point for whatever comes in Renegades that's Star Wars themed. It's probably not going to be meta defining. I mean, I can't say with certainty, but you can have an idea of what it's going to be like, and until we see it, which is a point I want to make here, we haven't seen much, right? But until we see what those weapons do, we won't know how good they're going to be. And even then, until they're in our hands and we can combine them and build into them with certain things. So kind of jumping the ship a little bit to be like, what if these weapons are metafying? What if you have to run the lightsaber? And, even if you don't want to break the immersion, you are forced to run it in a specific raid encounter or a dungeon or whatever. And I think the meta is in a pretty good place, at least right now. Not saying it will be when this stuff comes out, but if Bungie keeps up with the balanced patches, there's a variety of things that do well in certain situations, right? I mean, with Rite of the Nine, we've already seen a variety of options, a myriad of things, if you will, that work well for the final boss of Spire, Persis, and it's been Lord of Wolves, 1K, Tractor Cannon with 1K, rockets. There's so many different things you can do for him. Would the lightsaber be the choice if it existed right now? Who knows? It might be a choice, but it might not be the best choice. And so that conversation, I think, is one we'll have later in Renegades. But for now, just wait and see. That's all I can recommend. Of course, you can jump to your conclusions. Back to breaking immersion, right? I talked about the 30th anniversary stuff. We also have collabs with multiple other games, including a previous Star Wars collab that I see people complaining about now. I didn't really see too much ire about it before, and I kind of wonder if it's just compounding into a big thing now, because we've had the God of War collab, the Ghost of Tsushima collab, Mass Effect has had a collab, Dungeons and Dragons collab. We've had so many collabs, and there are so many armor sets in this game that even outside of collabs, you can make so many different armor sets. And kind of embarrassing for me to say this, but not really, because I can play the game however I want to. I've put in the money, I've put in the time. This is a game where, it isn't a true RPG, but in the sense of putting on whatever armor you want, you can do that, right? And yeah, I saw someone who made a Patrick Star armor set on their Titan, and I'm going to show it on screen now. It's goofy, it's silly, it's not that big of a deal, and of course it's on Titan. It just makes sense, and it's a fun little armor set. Now, I don't run this all the time. It doesn't break my immersion. I just have fun with it because, spoiler alert, Destiny 2 is a game and you're meant to have fun with it. If you see me flying around in my Thunder Crash as Patrick Star and that breaks your immersion, like what do you want me to do? I'm playing the game the way I want to, the way the devs intended, which is to wear whatever you want. And this armor set has zero collab items in it. Zero. So I do understand the difference, though, between what I just mentioned and a whole DLC that is, based around Star Wars. But, it's just inspired by Star Wars. It's not gonna be actual Star Wars, and that is a distinction that the devs have made. I think some people in the community have recognized, and, moving forward, I think it'll be less of a problem. But again, we have to wait and see, what is this DLC gonna have? What are the antagonists gonna be like? Who are the new characters involved? What are the missions? What is the city like? How does it work with the lore and whatnot, before we fully judge what Renegades is gonna be like? And honestly, whether or not we should sit down with Bungie and have an actual conversation about the direction of the game. Because, while saying all this, and while trying to put a positive spin in general on Destiny, It's really hard, by the way, because you know, just negativity farming is boring. It gets old, and it doesn't really help. Constructive criticism does, but I could just be bashing Bungie right now. And to that extent, I will say that if it does incorporate a lot of Star Wars things, which I don't think it will, or if it leans too much into, let's say, a plot that is common throughout Star Wars and has been done over and over again, then yeah, that is going to be annoying, and you'll probably see me make a video critiquing the expansion, and I probably won't be alone. So it's important to remember that yes, there are certain things that the community blows out of proportion. I think breaking the immersion is one thing. I think, having the idea that some of these Star Wars themed weapons are going to be meta-defining is another thing. We just don't know this stuff yet. But I do think the fear that this will go badly for Bungie is there. The capitalistic practices of Bungie, again, can come back to bite them in the ass, and I hope that's not the case. I hope they're smart enough to just take some, like a hint of Star Wars, kind of sprinkling it in like seasoning, instead of, just throwing a whole bucket of Star Wars onto this DLC. It's gonna be somehow tied to the lore, which drives me to one more thing. Now, not everyone noticed this, but I did see this in a video from Raffle Waffles, and I'm very happy he pointed this out. But you can see here, there's a little description of what Renegades will be. Dive into the criminal underworld and take down an evil empire. Venture into a lawless frontier and reveal deeper mysteries about a new dredgen in Seoul. Build your power, credits, and notoriety. If you don't know what a dredgen is, it's a guardian who typically practices really dark stuff, and I quite literally mean they use the darkness. There was also a dredgen named Yor who used Thorn, and of course, that also ties into Lumina and other stuff, and he is dead, so it's definitely not him, but there was a faction that existed after him called the Shadows of Yor, and they followed in his footsteps, and who knows, it could be remnants of these people, these followers of Yor, who maybe exist in a lost city on Mars somewhere, and maybe for the first time in Destiny's history, we're finally gonna fight other Guardians, which is something we only do in the Crucible, and outside of that have never done. It's a really cool concept, and personally it's something I would be extremely excited for. We really only fight humanoid type beings, like the Techians. Like most of the time it's aliens. We don't usually fight like other Awoken or humans and Exos. Typically it is just Fallen, Vex, Cabal, and so on. And of course the Dread were the first new enemy combatant we had gotten in years. We just got a refresh to the Taken in Heresy, which is cool. Hopefully the Dire Taken are used somewhere else down the line. I'm sure they'll be around. And again, fighting a faction of Guardians, maybe they have enslaved some other species to do their bidding, whether it be, the Hive, who are obviously looking for some new leaders, some of the Elixni, which we know there will be the House of Exile on Kepler, so maybe there's another house that is in desperate need of a leader, and so on. Even the Dread need a leader as well, and certainly any dredgen with enough power would be able to command some level of infantry, which any of those species could do. And who knows, maybe we'll have a lightsaber battle with another Guardian. I mean, I know it would be kind of cringe and a little on the nose, but also it would be cool. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it would be very cool. So as much as I am biased in this situation, I'm a content creator, I'm a Star Wars fan, I'm a Destiny fan. There are so many reasons for me to want this to succeed, to tell you that it's gonna be good. And I can't sit here with 100% confidence and say that to you, because I'm not a dev. I'm not working at Bungie. I don't know what they're cooking up. And that's why I'm not going to sit here and tell you you're going to have to buy this. You have to play it. Like, you don't. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to play it. Please wait to jump to your conclusions before we see what's in the reveal. And I know we're all addicted to this game, so even if you're not a fan of the concept, then you might just buy it anyways. But at that point, is it the game that's the problem, or is it a little bit of both? Because I think it's both. And listen, I'm not saying that I'm not part of the problem too. I definitely can be part of the problem. I'm probably gonna buy this regardless. So it's a little hypocritical of me to say that, but most people, you have the choice to not buy it. That being said, I haven't bought it yet, so I am kind of waiting, although, yeah, like I said, I'm hopelessly addicted. Regardless, we still need to hold Bungie accountable. We will still give them their fair share of criticism, and I'm sure, you know, whether it's in between now and the reveal, or during the reveal, after the reveal, and the lead up to the release of this DLC, yeah, I'm sure the criticism will be there regardless of whether or not it looks good or it seems good, and even if it's, you know, highly critically claimed, people still may have their gripes with it. You're never going to please everyone, but I do think there are some conclusions and assumptions that were made about this that are a little bit out of bounds for now. You know, I understand where that stuff is coming from, and I think it has some validity to it, but at the same time, we've only seen the cover, right? Essentially, the little trailer was like looking at the cover art of a book, and the small description of Renegades in the timeline is like reading the back side of the book, you know, just a little flavor text to give you a gist of what is going on in the book. And just based on that stuff alone, it's not enough to completely judge whether or not this is a full-on cash grab, or if it will be done tastefully, and quite frankly, if it will be a good DLC, because again, this sounds cool in theory, but that's really all I can say for now. Like the video if you enjoyed. I know this was a long rant, and I appreciate if you stayed until the end. If you did, please comment what your favorite Destiny DLC has been up until this point. Subscribe again if you enjoyed the content, and see ya.